Welcome back, everybody, to Catapult Your Business. My name is Casey Clark. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cultivate Advisors, and we are here propelling businesses by answering one question every week to help you scale and grow your organization. I've got a special guest with me today, as always. She's brought a phenomenal question, and that question is, why do I have inconsistency when it comes to having performers on my team? So we're going to dig into that. But before I do, I want to introduce our special guest. It's Simone Ashkar. She's actually the Senior Vice President of Advisory for our team. So oversees all of our advisors. Simone, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
I guess not the team. You've been on the team for a while. Welcome,
I was
welcome,
gonna say.
welcome to the call. Simone, you mind sharing everybody a little bit? What's your background a little bit? What were you doing here before you came over to Cultivate?
Sure. I actually started in franchising. So did that for a couple years. And then I went on to actually the franchisor side of franchising. And then back in 2017, I joined Cultivate and have been here for quite some time. And as you said, I work with the advisory staff now.
I love it. Well, you're doing a great job. And I know I speak on behalf of all the advisors that work underneath kind of your umbrella, that they love working with you. And I know, they appreciate the development. So thanks for being here and taking some time out of your busy schedule to pass some wisdom on to some of our owners here listening in. But I know they want to dig right in, so let's do it. So this is an interesting conversation to me because I really do feel like most organizations that you walk into and that we get a chance to kind of lift up the hood and look underneath, you generally see some really strong performers and then not so strong performers. And a lot of times they have the same backgrounds even, but there's just a different output. So just curious your perspective, like what do you think causes that? What are some of the must-dos that people are doing generally to be able to have consistent performance?
Sure. So I guess I'm going to assume that, they are hired, that you've hired the right people. I'm going to assume that the right meetings are in place and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And really what that comes down to then is it's kind of that human element or that X factor of humans that I think as leaders is a constant evolving and moving piece of how people work. And so I think once you try to figure out somebody, most likely within 3 to 6 months, something moves. And if we're not constantly adjusting as leaders, we probably miss out or we make assumptions, which is where inconsistency happens. So I'm always thinking constantly that you have to be evolving as a leader. And when you get comfortable, it's usually when inconsistency happens.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think you hit it dead on the head too, that it's like if you've recruited everybody with the right background, right? They have the right skill set. So it's like they should be capable of doing it. And then you trained everybody the same way. And then you run the same leadership systems or meetings or whatever your structure is. I do get why a lot of entrepreneurs are like scratching their head, going like, I don't get it. I gave you everything the other person got. You must just suck. Like you must just not. That's why we see that, right? It's like I'll meet with owners and I'll hear them be like, "Oh, these two are terrible," and I'm like, "Are they? Are they actually terrible, or was it that we didn't hire them right? Is it that they're not getting the right support? Is it that they didn't get trained properly, or is there this other personal side that you're bringing up? Tell us a little bit more about that because I do think that's a little bit of the X factor that I think a lot of owners do not slow down and think about. I mean, you're building a business with people usually. Human capital is very hard to scale, so curious to hear more about this personal side.
Yeah, and I think when we're trying to build trust and when trust is high, usually performance is high. To your point, usually we like the person and the person likes us. So the character piece of things is pretty established.
Mhm.
And then to the point of performance, their competency or ability to do it is pretty strong. And so for me, the last piece of the puzzle is usually like the buy-in, which is really just the alignment. It's that common sense of purpose. It's, hey, are we both seeing the same thing? Are we both aligned? And that is something that isn't stagnant and it's not static. And so that's usually what I see that gets uneven at some level. And if we're not constantly making sure that that's really the engaged part, it can fly off the handles pretty quick because humans are humans.
Well, and when you talk about alignment, it's kind of step one here. Are you referencing even just like aligned on the goal? Like, are we even clear what it means to be successful? Or are you talking about other areas of alignment?
I mean, I think it can come in so many different areas. Like I think about like even just people's calendar and schedule and times, like just making
Mhm.
sure that there's alignment there and even seasons with, schedules with pickups and drop-offs of families or even just summer schedules. Like if we're not evolving to some of those things that are just going to keep people really focused in on the right things at the right time, we could just be missing something very simple that's actually affecting the performance of a job.
Now, I know one of the ways for me that, in my leadership that I've learned how to work through that is a lot of times I just have to go hang out with somebody and see how they work. And that's one way that I catch some of those things that are much harder to see on the alignment side. Any other best practices you've seen or you've helped bring to other clients or businesses through time of like how to seek out this alignment on some of those other small things?
Yeah, I think to your point, like the most important piece that I think is important is slowing down before you speed up again and not making assumptions. And I think that just because something has worked for one person, not assuming that that's the blanket way to do it for everybody, is probably like the most important piece that I catch myself and I catch working with business owners that that's really the differentiator that gets that individual performance really rocking.
Well, and look, I mean, being a performer, right? Like a lot of people will use the analogy of like, you've climbed the mountain, like you've gotten to the top, right? As being a top performer. And I think what we all have to remember is that, and I'm not an expert at mountain climbing, but there are a lot of different ways to scale a rock, right? There's a lot of different ways and paths to go up. And so try to keep that in mind is I think what you're saying, to entrepreneurs. And it's hard, right? Like we're emotional. A lot of times we're fighting cash flow or we're dealing with external factors, and it's like to slow ourselves down, or even more importantly, slow our teams down. If we have a scaled leadership team, it can be really challenging to actually do that.
Are you getting the advice you need for your business from this episode? Do you want to get more than just one question answered and have it customized to you and your business? Well, Cultivate Advisors works one-on-one with thousands of business owners every day. Let them help you scale your business today. Don't just listen to this episode. Take action and go to cultivateadvisors.com to see which advisor you get matched with and receive a free 2-hour business assessment on how you could scale your business to the next level. Act now at cultivateadvisors.com.
So, all right, so keep going. Let's say this personal side, we've got the alignment kind of figured out. What's the next thing you generally would look at when you're trying to measure the personal preference side of helping somebody truly succeed and become a performer?
Yeah. So if I kind of think about situational leadership, then, and I kind
Okay.
of then in my head, I go through that and I think to myself, do they have the skill to be able to execute what we're expecting? And a lot of times, for performers, you're like, yes, I've seen them do this. I know they have the knowledge. I know they have the ability to do this. So then, kind of go to the other part, which if we're now aligned with, it's like they're bought in to do it. Really, that last piece then that sometimes I see is the confidence. And once that confidence gets rocked, which usually is based on experiences that are happening within the business or within whatever role they're in, that's the piece that again fluctuates, which creates inconsistencies. So that's the other piece that I keep a really close eye on. And I work with a lot of business owners to try to help understand how to either build it or identify it and kind of separate that piece.
Well, and for everybody listening in, what Simone's referencing is a really great methodology. It was put out by Ken Blanchard. I think it first got released kind of in the 1 Minute Manager book that he rolled out. Great, great read, by the way, if you want to dig into that, or great audiobook to go listen to. But as far as like how they set it up, they talk about these 4 different leadership styles, right? From are you going to be directive? Are you going to coach them? Are you going to support them? Are you going to delegate to them? But what I like about where Simone's going is you're really on more of like trying to assess the root problem, right? We either do they have the experience, do they have the knowledge? We think yes, because of the way they got trained, right? Don't make assumptions, but we think yes. And I think what you're saying is on the willingness side of breaking down situational leadership, it talks a lot about are they willing to do it and are they confident enough to do it? And willingness is that alignment. I mean, you kind of already hit that, right? So this confidence piece is definitely where people I think make too many assumptions, as you've shared before. And what I'm thinking about when you share this even is just like how many times I've seen people that were star performers and then all of a sudden they weren't, right? And you're like, so it's not even consistency across my team, it's like consistency of a person. There's a high probability that confidence is wavering for something has triggered a confidence event of some kind. I don't know if you agree with that or if you see that the same way, Simone.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the easiest way to see that often is like in sales teams. Like I think that that's the easiest one when I'm
Yeah.
leading working with business owners is like they're like, well, they've sold a ton. It's like, yeah, what's their experience the last 30 to 60 days?
Yeah.
And you see that that's where the slump is, which when you have those negative experiences, you have lower confidence. And that's like a easy way to identify a lot of times.
And it's in any department of the business this happens too, right? Sales is definitely the easiest, but like customer support of e-commerce or product business, it's like they get chewed out and cussed out by an angry customer, and then all of a sudden they start to doubt the product, and they don't speak with the same the same level of passion around the product, or an operator, a professional service firm, right? Like they all of a sudden have really bad attrition and lose clients, or they feel like they've let somebody down, they haven't done as good enough job, they start to question their abilities, and they lose that confidence. All of that triggers in and can cause it. Any advice you could give folks listening in if they've identified there's a confidence issue, and that may be a stem of their performance, of like how you would go about building their confidence? Like I know that's probably a crash course for a week in
Yeah.
leadership, but if you had like 1 or 2 minutes to summarize it, what would come to mind for you?
Yeah, and I think, that piece of support, whether, you have the ability to be in person, I think a great way to build confidence is to show, to show your support. So spend the time. Time is a good investment to show and build that commitment and confidence piece of things.
Sure.
But other ways, right, is that if you really believe in what they're doing, and you know that they've done it in the past, if you have different recordings from the past of them doing it, you can bring back things that they've done well and show them their different past performances that they have done. Bring back the things that have brought them success to get it in front of their face again, versus the negative things that they're probably only looking at, because that's the only thing that a lot of top performers are staring at.
Well, and you're so on, right? I mean, how many times have you seen some of even your leaders, right? We won't call any names, but like, they're frustrated at the inconsistency of a team member achieving whatever they're in pursuit of. And they're sitting here trying to like hold conflict and come down on the person and like talk about what they need to do better. But what hasn't been identified is there's actually a confidence issue. So all this leader is doing is actually just berating down even more the loss of confidence, right? And it's just a double whammy where it's like a guaranteed fallout, and you're probably going to have a team member attritioning out of your organization.
Yeah. And I obviously never happens at Cultivate, but I've had a few business owners too that go do that, of course. So
Yeah, no, for sure. That's real. I mean, I've seen that for sure. There's one area that I think you're just world class at, and you're more conscious of it, I feel like, than even I am when we're inside of training meetings or executive, discussions, or, whatever type of leadership meetings is. And that's learning styles. Like I'm always hearing you constantly thinking about learning styles and trying to meet people where they're at. Tell us a little bit more about that factor on the personal side, because I think that also sometimes is why, on the knowledge side of situational leadership, right? Or the experience side of situational leadership, you think you trained them, but it's like, did we actually train them? Do they actually know what to go do? I'm curious to hear your perspective, because I know you jolt out on that quite a bit.
yeah. I always look at it as, when you have a training, you probably have let's say very simplistically, it's steps 1 through 10. And a lot of times, because we do training a lot, or we have our way of doing it, we often think like somebody has to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But at the end of the day, really what we care about is the end outcome. And the end outcome is that they know all 10 steps, and that they kind of generally know that there's an organizational pattern to them. And
Mhm.
I think a lot about when we're moving in a pattern with people, if somebody's falling behind, often we're like, well, you're not allowed to move to the next step until you accomplish this one. Where I think when I think about learning styles and different ways to move around it, it's like, well, if we actually just moved them around that step, can they actually go complete all the rest of them, which will gain confidence to then go back to the other one. And when I think through those types of different situations, that's just an easy one for me to think like all 10 get achieved. It just may not be in the order that you've put together, because your brain may think different than somebody else.
Yeah.
It's like an easy way that I often just like think about it in a training structure. And equally, if it's not just in the same premise of training, I know just growing up in a household that the way that I learned was very different than my siblings, just from a very
Yeah.
simplistic way, right? And so it's like, if you don't like reading, you like visual, or you like audio, like those are 3 different ways very quickly.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those all built in, you're probably going to have somebody struggle. And if you're not conscious of that, you could lose a really talented person just because you don't have a simple way to help that person get through to the end outcome, which is a lost opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in to Catapult Your Business, where Cultivate Advisors is helping you catapult your business one question at a time. Are you running your business, or is your business running you? At Cultivate Advisors, they'll match you with an expert advisor and do a free 2-hour deep dive for your business. This will give you the clarity you need on how to get your business to the next level. Cultivate has worked with thousands of businesses. What do you have to lose? So head over to cultivateadvisors.com and sign up for your free 2-hour session.
Well, in a way that I've always found out people's learning styles, I find people don't have any idea what their learning styles are. It's been my experience too. So I find you have to be like, all right, tell me when you've been the most successful. Okay. And how did you learn that? and they'll like walk me through literally what did they do to teach that to you? And when did you learn that? I learned it by doing this. It's like, you're this type of learner. Now I know how to go approach you. So if that's a quick little, grab for people, but I'm going to dive into one piece of what you said there that I really like. And it's this 1 through 10 step you shared. And like, sometimes you have to identify the root where maybe they're not as skilled or they're having the issue. And then you take that, and instead of trying to make them better at it, you actually remove it for them, right? And it doesn't mean you can't bring it back, but I think entrepreneurs listening in here, like, you all know you don't do this. I know, because I don't do this either. Like, I think most people naturally don't think this way. What we do, right, is you're like, oh, cool, you're good at these 6 steps, but these 2 you really struggle with. I'm going to pound you on these 2 steps and teach you how to do them right now, because I need you to do these better. And you know what? I'm going to get involved and do a coaching event. You know what? I'm going to do the entire event for you because I want to show you how this works. Where in reality, what you're saying, right, is you're saying, look, slow down, identify the root, figure out what those 1 or 2 areas are, and then take them off their back and show them how good they are at all the other steps. And then maybe you step in and support them with those 1 or 2 steps, or figure out a different way to do that step where it does work for them. And again, this seems so simple and it's not rocket science, but when you're in the moment, to actually be able to slow down and do it, I think it's really challenging.
That's the high urgency piece of you, Casey.
I don't have high urgency. What are you talking about? I'm the most patient soul. You should talk to my wife. She'll tell you. I'm the most patient person you've ever met in your life.
Yeah.
No, dead on. I have no patience at all. And so if you're like me and that's your Achilles heel per se in business, you'll definitely be hit with this more than others. So be on the lookout for it. Look, we're coming up to time. Simone, I really appreciate the space here. I think for me, right, I kind of just broke it down. It's like, first, like, are you aligned? Right? Like, step 1, are we aligned on what we're trying to achieve and what's going on in your life and all the different personal elements? Like, let me just watch you work. Like, are we actually aligned? And that even kind of comes down to like, are we even aligned on what the root of this thing is that's causing this? Then I've got step 2, which is like, look situationally, try to dig in and go, am I giving this person the leadership type they need? And more specifically, really focus in on where's that confidence at? Because it seems like confidence is maybe the most biggest lever for inconsistency of performance. And then third and finally, just to kind of summarize it, that I heard was, after you're done with that, then go meet them where they're at and figure out their learning style and figure out what are the 1 or 2 steps that you need to alleviate to rebuild confidence, to re-get them going. And that hopefully will start to increase and create that consistent performance. So a wealth of knowledge, not surprised, knew this was going to be an amazing episode this time. Simone, any final thoughts you'd like to share with all of the entrepreneurial listeners coming in today?
I think just be cognizant that when change happens, whether it's within the business or just external elements, most likely this is where you should heighten that moment to be ready for it with people. And if you look at those kind of 3 areas, most likely you're going to be able to get to the root or the understanding of it quicker.
Well, I appreciate this. And you know what? It's one of the mantras that I try to run the business here at Cultivate on, but it's like, it's not you can align on the goal, but at the end of the day, you have to empower the person to choose the path. And that's kind of what we've been slowing down and talking about most of this episode. So thank you for the wisdom, Simone. For everybody listening in, continue to reach towards your goals, continue to maybe slow down and not have so much urgency, and try to measure where is the confidence and how can I help this person in a more situational way become consistent in their performance. But otherwise, we will see you next week for another question and another way to propel and scale your business to the next level. With that, that's a wrap. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.